Hello and welcome back to the Rise and Shine podcast. I'm your host, Haylee Jacob. Have you ever felt lonely in your faith? Have you ever felt like maybe even more than lonely, maybe you've been left out because of your faith? Sometimes it's hard to understand why God sets his people apart, but that's what we're going to talk about today. So grab your coffee, find your comfiest chair, and let's rise and shine. Okay guys, happy Monday. I'm so excited to be here with you today. As always, I just love getting to come on the podcast and just sharing the love of Jesus with you, with everybody. It's one of my favorite things. I love it. So thank you for being here with me today. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about being set apart and what that often looks like for Christians. God calls us to be different than the world. God calls us to be set apart. A simple definition of holy, one of the definitions of the word holy, means to be set apart. To be set apart means to be different, in a different place. When you set something apart, that means you're separating it from everything else, right? So to be set apart means separated from something. And God calls us to be set apart from the world. He does not want us to be a part of. He does not want us to look like the world. We're called to be set apart. We're called to be different. And different is hard sometimes. Different can be lonely. Different is not easy. We go through difficulties. There's temptations to be like everybody else. Different is difficult, but we are not supposed to be like the world. We are supposed to be a light that shines in the world and shows people Jesus. That we are supposed to point the world to Jesus. That's why we are set apart. We are on a mission to show people who Jesus is. Leviticus 20:26 says, "You shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from peoples, that you should be mine." That kind of spells it out right there. God said, you are to be holy as I am holy. And to be holy, part of that means to be separated from the world. He says, I will separate you from the peoples. He literally says that. We're supposed to be different than the people of the world. That means we're supposed to walk in righteousness. We're supposed to turn away from sin. We're supposed to be lights in the darkness. We're not supposed to be part of the darkness. We're supposed to shine light on the darkness. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into marvelous light." If I remember right, I think Peter is actually quoting that verse we just read. So we are a chosen people. Our mission is to proclaim his excellencies, proclaim his glory, proclaim his goodness, proclaim that he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords to the whole world. And we are supposed to shine light. We have been called out of the darkness into marvelous light so that we can shine light in the darkness. We've been called out of the darkness so that we can help those who are still in it. That's why we are set apart. If we were like the world, if we blended in, if we fit in perfectly, then no one would know that we're different. No one would know that we follow Jesus. No one would be able to tell the Jesus followers from the non-Jesus followers. But like I said, sometimes it's really hard being set apart. It's really difficult. It is not the easiest path to follow. It can be lonely. The enemy wants to do anything he can to distract you from that mission. He wants to do anything he can do to get you to fail or to completely give up on the mission. He wants to tempt you with friends, with excitement, with worldly, fleshly desires. And he's going to throw all of that at you while you're on the path to righteousness, while you are on that mission, while you are walking set apart from the world. So you may be experiencing, whether you're a new Christian or been a Christian for a long time or whatever, you might be experiencing right now being left out, or maybe even being made fun of because of your faith, especially if you're younger. If you are a younger listener right now, and maybe you're in school, maybe you're in college or high school or middle school or whatever, that can be a difficult time to walk in your faith because the people around you don't think the same way that you might be thinking. The people around you, the kids around you, the students around you might not have the same beliefs and don't understand why you won't go to this party or why you won't do these substances. And maybe you're not even a kid. These are things that adults face too. At work, why you're not drinking at your work Christmas party, or why you don't do substances, or why you won't go out to the club, right? People don't understand, and that separates you from them. When people don't understand something, most of the time what they do is they make fun of it, or they judge it, or they completely forget about it and walk the other way because they're like, I don't understand that. So you may be going through feeling like you're not invited to a lot of things. I feel like there was a time in my life where I didn't get invited to my friends' events, or I didn't get invited to certain things because people knew I was a Christian and knew I wouldn't, or even I wasn't invited in a lot of conversations because people were talking about things that they knew I wouldn't agree with. And it's not that I wanted, especially like conversations, it's not like I wanted to be invited to those, but also on the flip side of that, you see everybody talking and chatting and having fun, and you're not part of it. And so you're like, you feel distant, you feel alone, you feel, well, nobody wants me around because of my faith, or nobody wants me around because it could be that people don't want you around because they feel judged, or they feel like you're going to judge them. Or it could be that they're judging you and they don't want anything to do with what you do. It could be that when you're around, they feel convicted. The light shines on the dark deeds that they want to keep hidden. So if they think that you're going to expose the things they want hidden, then of course they're going to separate themselves from you. Of course they're going to keep you at arm's length. Of course they don't want those things to be exposed. They don't want to feel convicted. They don't want to feel ashamed. They don't want to feel like their life choices are wrong. When people don't want to be wrong, they're going to build a world for themselves where they are the center, where everything they do is right. And if you don't agree with it, then you don't belong. And so I want to encourage you that a lot of times it's not personal, it's because Jesus is in you. But like I said, these are things that many people, many Christians feel when they're living a holy, set apart life. The world won't understand you because it is dark and evil. Or maybe even it's not that they're doing it on purpose. Maybe they just genuinely don't understand your choices. Maybe you have a friend out there that you've grown distant with because you believe different, and it's not because they're mad at you. It's not because they feel convicted around you. Maybe it's just because they don't know. They don't know the truth that's in you. Maybe they don't understand why you make those choices. And instead of having a conversation about it, because a lot of people don't like awkward conversations. A lot of people avoid those awkward conversations like the plague. So instead of having a conversation, hey, I've noticed that you've stopped going to clubs. Hey, I've noticed that you don't do this anymore, or you don't do that anymore, or you don't say those words anymore, right? Instead of talking to you about it, they feel weird and they're just like, well, I'm just going to slowly distance myself, even if it's not purposeful. It could be even that they know you are Christians. It's not that they don't understand it. It's not that they feel awkward. It could be that they don't want Jesus. They know Jesus is in you, and they have actively chosen to reject him and his love. Therefore, because Jesus is in you, that means they have to actively reject you. Jesus said, the world will hate you, but remember, they hated him first. They hated Jesus. The world hates Jesus. So if you have Jesus in you, I'm sorry to say the world is going to hate you. John 15:19 says, if you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world. You were chosen out of the world. You were pulled from the darkness into light. Therefore, the world hates you. Because you're different, because you are a follower of Christ, and the world hates Jesus, the world is going to hate you. Don't let that discourage you, because Jesus said he has overcome the world. Jesus wins no matter what. Every person in the world who follows Jesus closely has experienced these things or is currently experiencing these things. So I want to encourage you, know that there is a family of believers out there who believe the same way you do, who are feeling the things that you are feeling, and who love you and who want you a part of the body of Christ. And best of all, Jesus is with you. Jesus will never leave you nor forsake you. Jesus is our best friend, our ultimate comforter. He will never leave you. So at the end of this episode, we will talk about how to build a godly community around you. But real quickly, I want to talk more about people who felt lonely at times, who felt set apart, who felt rejected by the world. The Bible is full of people who were rejected, who were cast out, who were kind of just dismissed because of their beliefs. And the people I really want to talk about today is Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those stories have really kind of been on my mind lately. So I want to talk about them, Daniel and his friends. So I'm turning to the book of Daniel, and I'm not going to sit and read it kind of word for word, but I'm just going to summarize the story. So this is in Daniel chapter 1. Daniel and his friends, who at the time were named Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they were part of the captives in Babylon. This is when the people of Israel, God's people, were in Babylonian captivity. So the king, Nebuchadnezzar, had given a decree to gather all the healthy young men and kind of train them physically, teach them in the ways of the literature of the Babylonians. He just wanted a new group of people to serve in his kingdom, people that were wise, people, it does say good looking. He wanted healthy, smart young men. These men were gathered from Babylonians and the captives, nobles. They were just kind of gathered from all over the place. And Daniel and his friends happened to be some of the ones that were chosen to come in and be trained for this. And part of the training included being fed the king's food. So they were training for 3 years. They were learning all these things, but also they were given this decadent food. Daniel, however, decided he did not want to defile his body with the king's food. And this is where the idea of the Daniel fast came from. If you might be fasting right now. A lot of churches do fasts in January. This is where the Daniel fast came from, was Daniel chose not to defile his body with the king's food, with the meat, with the wine, all the heavy, decadent food that the king was giving these people, that the king ate himself. And he and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which were the names that the Chaldeans gave them, decided, hey, don't give us this food. Just give us vegetables and water. And the guard was like, but if I don't give you this food, you're going to wither away. If that's all you eat, and then the king's going to be mad at me because you're not going to be strong enough to do what he needs you to do. And Daniel's like, no. test us for 10 days. Give us only veggies and water for 10 days. So the guy's like, okay. Then after 10 days, they come back and they are fuller. They are healthier looking. They are stronger than all the other men who are eating the king's food. So this guard is like, okay, you've proven yourself. I will give you vegetables and water instead of the king's food. And it says in verse 17, as for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Because they chose not to defile themselves with worldly pleasures, which was, in this case, the decadent food, the king's food, and they chose to stay committed to God. They chose to commit their bodies to the Lord. It didn't make sense to the Babylonians. It didn't make sense to the world. It might not have even made sense to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but they knew that that's what God was calling them to do. They were set apart. They were separated. They were different than the other young men because they were not eating, they were not partaking of that fleshly pleasure of that food. However, God's ways are not our ways. We might not understand, and we might look at the situation and be like, but God, I don't understand how this will make things better. I don't understand how this can be your will, how this can make me more holy. Sometimes we don't understand. But at the end of that, they were stronger physically, but also they were more gifted in the knowledge and skill and wisdom. And Daniel even was given the gift of interpreting dreams and visions. So they, by not holding themselves to the worldly standards, God elevated them physically and mentally, and of course spiritually. Going on, it says, now at the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. Then the king interviewed them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times, not just a little bit better, 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all his realm. Thus Daniel continued until the first year of King Cyrus. Not just a little bit better, 10 times. Sometimes we don't understand why we're being set apart. Lord, why can't I go to that party? I won't do the things that they're doing. I just want friends. Or, Lord, why can't I do this? Why is it okay for them to do that, but not for me? And sometimes different people have different convictions and God calls, different things on different people too. And that's something you just have to work out with him. But just know that he has a plan and his ways are better. And it's not only that we're called to be different, we're different because we're not walking in the flesh. We're walking in the spirit. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their flesh probably really wanted that meat. They probably really wanted that decadent food. But they weren't walking according to the flesh. They were walking according to the spirit. They were walking according to how they knew God wanted them to walk. They were ignoring the flesh. And this is what a fast is about. Putting aside fleshly desires and doing what God has called you to do. I'm going to turn over to Romans chapter 8 so that you can see what Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were doing. They actively were walking in the spirit, and we can do this too. This is why we're set apart. This is what sets us apart, what I'm about to say right here. This is what makes us different than the world. So I'm in chapter 8. I'm going to start at verse 5. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. So if you set your mind on the things of the flesh, or if you live according to the flesh, that's what you're going to think about. If you think that your strength is going to come from food, then that's what you're going to think about. You're going to think about food. If you know that your strength comes from God, then you're going to be able to set aside that food, right? And this is just an example because that's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel set aside was food, right? But it can be anything. If you are so worried about how popular you are or how many friends you have, or even if it's not just about popularity, but just about if you're focused on feeling included, then that's what your mind is going to think about. And you're going to take offense when you're not included, right? But if you're worried about pleasing the Lord and just spending time with Him, then that's what you're going to think about. And you're not even going to care. You're not even going to notice when you're not invited. You're not even going to notice when people say, oh, they don't do that, so we're not going to talk to them, right? You're not even going to notice because your mind is not set on that. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego understood their strength did not come from that food. Even though their bodies probably wanted it, they knew that their strength came from the Lord. All they had to do was eat vegetables and water, and they were 10 times better than all the other men. Verse 6, to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. To be carnally minded is death. Temporarily, that may feel good. Having a lot of friends, being included, going out and partying, going out and doing all those things might be fun for a time, but ultimately it leads to death. You're not giving your mind to Christ. You're not living for the Lord. You're living for your flesh. And even though you might say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I believe, that's not what you're living for. You're living for those fleshly desires. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. And that may not mean what you think it means. That doesn't mean you're going to be happy all the time. That doesn't mean you're still going to get invited to all the things. That doesn't mean you're going to have a ton of friends and be peaceful because you've got all these people, right? It means that you're going to have everlasting life in Christ, and it means you're going to have peace that the world cannot understand. That's what that means. So don't trade everlasting life and peace for a temporary excitement, for a temporary happiness, for a temporary acceptance by the world. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can it be. So then, those who are in the flesh cannot please God. If you are worried about being invited, if you are worried about being lonely, if you're worried about what you eat, if you're worried about these worldly, fleshly things, if you're worried about being included and being accepted by the world, it will be impossible for you to please God. Impossible. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you. Now, if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, he is not his. If you are not walking according to the Spirit of Christ, you are not in Christ. And if Christ is in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. Righteousness, holiness, walking set apart, doing God's will instead of the world's. But if the Spirit of Him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, He who raised Christ from the dead will also give you life to your mortal bodies through His Spirit who dwells in you. That right there is why Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were able to do what they did. And later on, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were also once set apart because of their beliefs, and they were thrown in a fire. They refused to bow down to a golden image. Now, remember, they were considered 10 times better than all the magicians, all the astrologers in the king's realm, right? So, of course, these worldly people are jealous of them. So just imagine that too in your life. Maybe don't assume that people just don't like you. Maybe don't assume that they have it better. Maybe they see the light in you and see that life and peace and joy in you, and maybe they're a little jealous. And really, if they are letting their flesh win, they might be trying to bring you down because of it. They might be trying to trip you up because they're jealous. They don't want to see you succeed because they hate Jesus in you. They might not realize they hate Jesus in you, but they hate that. They hate that peace in you. They're jealous. They don't want you to have it. So they're going to try to bring you down, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they refused to bow down to an image. Daniel refused to pray to any other god. So these are at different times. They're different events. So I'm just kind of putting them in one. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got thrown into a fiery furnace because they were set apart, because they were different, because they didn't follow what everybody else was doing. They didn't follow the norm. They didn't follow the popular, what was going on. They were set apart by God, and they followed God no matter if it made them different, no matter if it got them cast into a fire that was set so hot that the people who threw them in were set on fire. But even in that, they still were not alone. Because not only did God save their lives and keep them from being burned in the fire, there was a fourth man in the fire. God was with them through that. If you are feeling lonely, if you're feeling like nobody understands you, if you're feeling cast aside because of your beliefs, if you're feeling like, yeah, Lord, I'm following you, I commit to you, I want to do your will, but Lord, it sure is lonely. Nobody wants to talk to me. People are angry with me. If you feel that way, no, you are not alone. The Lord said he will never leave you nor forsake you. There was a fourth man in that fire. God was with them through the whole thing. He didn't leave them when it got hard. He showed up even more when it got difficult. God's always with you. But know that when you're going through a difficult time, he is near the brokenhearted. He draws close to the brokenhearted. He's never far away from you, even if you're joyful and peaceful. But know that he is near you when you are struggling. He doesn't leave you. He's with you. When Daniel refused to pray to another god, he not only continued praying to his God, he did it with the windows open. Daniel boldly opened his windows and prayed to God out loud. So these people, these jealous, quote unquote, wise men, came to the king and said, hey, we have an idea. Anybody who prays to any god or any man or serves anybody higher above you, that person or those people should be thrown into the lion's den. You're so great. You're so awesome. We think that they set a decree for 30 days. For 30 days, everyone should pray to you, oh cool king, right? And if they don't, they're going to be thrown in the lion's den. Knowing that Daniel was a man of God. This is why they did it. And so, of course, like I said, Daniel refuses to pray to the king because there's no kings above our king, right? And so he prays boldly with the windows open. So they throw him in the lion's den. Guess what? God shuts up the lions' mouths. Daniel survives. He does not get eaten by the lions. And then, because of that, King Darius then honors God. He sees, and remember, King Darius loved Daniel. Daniel was like his favorite advisor. He regarded Daniel as a friend. He did not want to throw him in the lion's den, but he had to do what he said, right? He hoped that Daniel's God would save him. Then when God did save Daniel, Darius honored God. You might be set apart from some friends or from a certain group of people or from whatever for a while, and it may hurt, but it could be so that that person or those people see God's glory through that. It could be that God is using a situation to bring those people to him. So don't think even that it's forever. If you're feeling this lonely and this separation and this distance with somebody, it might not be forever. It could be so that those people come to know the Lord, because that's what happened with Darius. He honored God because of Daniel's firm faith, because Daniel refused to give up his faith and blend in. Don't sacrifice your faith just to blend in. So all these men gave up their fleshly desire of fitting in, their fleshly desire of food, their fleshly desire of safety from fire and the lion's den, right? They gave up those fleshly desires and the comfort of kind of blending in and were set apart. They gave that up because they knew that they had to walk in righteousness and holiness so that they could shine God's light in the darkness. Again, those things, acceptance, friends, things like that, they might create comfort temporarily. But if you're not walking with the Lord, if you're choosing them over the Lord, you're giving up peace and a relationship with Christ. If you are choosing to be with somebody who draws you away from Jesus, it's not worth it. Blending in here in this world is not worth it, because this world is temporary. It will fade away. But Jesus is forever. He is eternal. He was here before time began, and he will be here forever. Don't sacrifice Jesus for blending in. Okay, with all that said, we kind of basically guaranteed that sometimes you might feel lonely, or sometimes you might feel rejected. Sometimes you might feel like an outcast or made fun of, or even hated and persecuted for your faith. So what do we do about this? What do we do about the loneliness, right? So first and most important thing that you can do about feeling lonely is build your relationship with Jesus. Focus on Jesus. Find fellowship and communion with him. Because again, he is the only one that will never fail you. People will fail you even if they are Christians, even if they are strong believers and have a wonderful personal relationship with Jesus. They're still human. People will fail you. So first, you need to find your worth, your identity, your acceptance in Jesus. He is your comforter. He is the peace giver. He gives joy. He is the counselor, everlasting Father, right? He is our friend, right? Look to him first. If you are feeling overwhelmingly lonely, Jesus is there with you. Find comfort, find acceptance, find friendship in him. And really, that's all you need. I could stop there. That's all you need is Jesus. Okay, but I am going to go on. Okay, number 2, get plugged into a church or a small group or some kind of community, right? Get plugged in. I know it's difficult. It can be a little scary, but if you're not plugged in, or even if you're going to a church, there's a funny video out there and it says, why don't I have any friends at church? And it's a video of this girl. She comes in, doesn't talk to anybody, sits in her pew. And then at the end of service, she gets up and zooms and kind of, you can see her weaving and bobbing through the crowds and just head straight to her car. Okay, so maybe you are in a church. Are you having conversations with people, or are you just sitting there listening to the word, which is good, and then just going home? Or are you staying and fellowshipping? Are you reaching out? Are you talking to people? Are you being brave and just kind of putting yourself out there? But get plugged in to a church or a small group. Maybe you are at a church, maybe you're at a really big church, and that's why you feel a little lonely. It's like maybe you're just a little too overwhelmed. Find a small group. A smaller group of people can be more intimate. You can have better conversations. It doesn't seem as overwhelming. And usually small groups are based on similar ages or similar interests. So it might be a little bit easier for you to start a conversation. Fellowship is so important. The Bible does talk about fellowship, especially in the New Testament. We need each other. We are meant to carry each other's burdens. We are meant to do life together. So don't forsake fellowship. Don't think that it's not important. It definitely is. We need each other's guidance, each other's strength, and just each other's love and friendship. Surround yourself with those who have the same convictions as you, who will encourage you and not tempt you, who will bring you closer to the Lord, point you closer to Jesus, and not pull you away, who will bear your burdens with you rather than put more on you, than make you feel shameful and guilty. Okay, number 3, reach out to people in your life who you know are believers. Maybe there's someone at school, or maybe there's someone at work, or maybe there's a neighbor in your life that you know is a believer and you kind of know of them, but you just haven't struck up a conversation with them. You just haven't kind of made the effort to go talk to them, to build a relationship. Reach out to those people. If you know of people that are strong in their faith, but maybe you don't have any classes with them, or maybe you work in a different department, so you're like, oh no, it'll be kind of awkward to go talk to them. No, I would imagine that they would love if you came and talked to them. Maybe they don't know you are a believer. I imagine they would be thrilled that you come and talk to them and strike up a conversation. Be like, hey, I'm really needing some Christian friends. Would you like to go get some coffee with me? I'd like to get to know you better. Would you like to go to church with me? Would you like to go to this concert with me, or whatever it is? Go, be bold. Daniel was so bold that he prayed with the windows open, knowing that he would get thrown in the lion's den if he was caught. You can be bold enough to go talk to somebody, right? Reach out to somebody. Reach out to people who you know are strong in your faith and try to be friends. I'm not saying it'll always work, because just different personalities click differently, but it doesn't hurt to try. And maybe even if you don't click with that person, maybe they can still be there for you when you need them. Maybe you can still reach out to them for prayer. Maybe they're not going to be your best friend, but maybe they know somebody who could be your best friend, and they're like, hey, I think you would get along great with this person. Reach out to them. It's scary, but you should do it. It'll be worth it, right? Be active in finding a godly community. It could be that God has these people around you. You might be looking around like, God, why don't I have any friends? God, send me some friends. And he's like, I've sent you like 15 people, but you're not active. You're not going out and talking to people, right? You need to take an active part in your relationship with God, first and foremost, but in your relationships with others. Relationships are both ways, right? So you need to be active. Ask God to send you someone, but then take action when he does. Okay. All right. And the last one, don't be afraid to be alone. Don't be afraid of being alone, because really, that's when you can hear God the most, is when you're just one-on-one with him. But don't be afraid to go to an event on your own. Maybe you don't go to church because you don't know anybody else who goes to church and you don't want to go by yourself. Or maybe there's a conference or a meeting that you want to go to, or a Christian concert that you want to go to, but you aren't going because nobody wants to go with you. Go by yourself. Go anyway. 1, the Lord is with you. But 2, you're probably going to meet people there. Someone might see you sitting by yourself, and if it's a Christian event, they're probably going to reach out to you and talk to you. Or you could be like, hey, that person looks cool. Reach out and talk to that person, right? Don't be afraid of being alone, because alone and loneliness are not the same thing. Don't get them confused. Don't get God calling you to be by yourself for a little bit confused with loneliness. Now, we can be lonely when we're alone, but sometimes God just wants us to be alone with him. Or sometimes he wants you to go to that event because he's got somebody he wants you to meet. Or sometimes he wants you to go to that event alone and he wants you to stay alone because he wants you to focus and not be distracted, right? Don't be afraid of being alone because you are never alone. God is always with you. Okay, as always, I hope that encouraged you. I hope that if you are feeling lonely, if you are feeling rejected, I hope that this gave you some tips, some encouragement, some ideas, some boldness to go out and find a Christian community. But also, I hope that it taught you that if you're being rejected by the world, that's kind of a good thing. That is a good thing because that means you're following Jesus. That means you're set apart. You don't want to be accepted by the world, right? You don't want to blend in so much where Jesus isn't seen in you. All right, guys, now go out there and shine.